Hey, what's up YouTube? Marco here. Apologies for not posting a run video in over a week. The reason being, my knees are hurting. Alright, I got some bad knees. Just listen to my body, taking some time off from running, thinking about the long game. Alright, just not trying to risk a serious injury. I'll be back to it soon, to be honest. I did do a run video the other day, 2 days ago. But I went on a sports card rant about corruption and collusion in the hobby, which I felt like might have been. I just didn't post it. I might post it. It's a little out there though. But today's video, what I want to talk about is what I'm calling the life and times of Luke Buczek. You know, from how I knew him, Coach Buczek. All right, today would be his birthday. I'm pretty sure he was 10 years older than me. Exactly. I'll post, like, I have a graphic made of him, and I have the card from his funeral. So his exact age is going to be on there. But there's a chance that he's turned 40, would be 40 at this point. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about Coach. This guy, I first want to say, was a true football coach. All right, and I mean this by two different ways. First of all, you got a lot of coaches nowadays where coaching is like the side gig. All right, it's like it's how they're gonna get their foot in the door to be a teacher, to then where they get tenured and have some job security. All right, and then once they have it, maybe they stop coaching. All right, there's coaches that are gonna coach for a couple seasons and say, hey, I got to be a family man. I got the wife and kids at home, and they stop coaching. All right. You got some coaches that coach the fall as they should, as the standards, because it's launch season, summer, and then the fall. And then you got guys like Coach Buczek that are coaching in Florida, so that way he can do spring ball, so that way he can do girls flag football. Just a guy that's growing the game. During the summer, he's doing summer camps for some professional athletes. This guy was 100% a football coach, like through and through. And how I met him was through he had gotten a graduate assistant position at the college that I was going to. So graduate assistant, or GA, that would be somebody that's not being paid by the school to do all the responsibilities of a coach, and probably more if we're being honest. And in return, it's like, we're going to let you get your master's, right? And you get to live in one of the dorms with another coach that's your roommate. So we met when he was in his first year doing a graduate assistant program, and his ties to the school were that he was, I guess, growing up in the same neighborhood as the head coach and his son, and he was like friends with the head coach's son. So years later, I guess he got this opportunity to go be the GA over at Concordia. There's the school, right? There's a couple, but he was over at Concordia. And he was coaching outside linebackers. And I was like I was a very undersized and not that good defensive lineman, right? So I got moved to outside linebacker pretty quickly in college, and boom, he was my positional coach. And I mean, I was no stud in college football, right? Like I'll say I worked hard. I say I tried hard in practice. I got my sophomore year, I got scout team defensive player of the year. I got scout offensive player of the week for doing some running back. So I'm giving great effort, but I was a freshman and a sophomore while coach was there, So he's my positional coach, and I'm down in the depth chart, But this guy, one of his philosophies, was just like, you got to invest in all your players no matter where they are in the depth chart. this guy, his office was always open. He was a dude. We had like a football house, right? And all the coaches had like a room inside that house, and it was like their office. This dude was always in there. You know, we would talk football, but we would talk like anything: school, girls, life, family, right? Just everything that's important to a kid that's 18, 19 years old in college. I was going to say something else, you know, but I lost my train of thought there. Bottom line, this guy, he was always like in the office pretty much. You'd see him around campus. Honestly, never saw him not repping to school. He would always wear like the maroon jumpsuit, the black jumpsuit. I mean, killing it in the jumpsuit, right? Well, here's what I was gonna say. One of the most creative things that I've ever seen from a coach in the film. At one point, he had like a slide that said, "Don't say anything and give me a fist bump if you watch the film." So the next day when we were doing like film meeting, right, the dudes that went up to him and gave him a fist bump, that's how he knew they watched the film. And then when we started the meeting, he's like, "All right, so I know some guys didn't watch the film because you didn't give me a fist bump." Like, hilarious. I thought that was genius, you know. He ended up coaching running backs the next year. And he had this like persona. I don't know exactly what you can call it, but you know, he started calling himself Coach Savage, which was hilarious, I thought. And you know, I remember one of the early times, like, I asked him, like, we were in the cafeteria, and these coaches were good guys, you know, they'd be going around, like, you know, catching up with the players, talking shop, you know, just whatever, before they head out. And I remember, like, it was either me or someone at the table was like, "Yeah, why are you, like, Coach Savage?" And he was just like, you know, just it's a lifestyle, it's how you live, it's by doing things like this. And he takes my hot dog, like, that was on my plate, bites it in half, and then just, like, throws it back down on the plate. And he's like, by doing stuff like this. Hilarious, you know. Whole table's going nuts. He was a great, like, players coach. I remember this drill, I mean, he had these, like, red arm bags, all right? And he's got these red arm bags, and he's wanting us to practice, like, pass rush moves, right? You know, you're clubbing ribs, you're swimming dips, you know, all that type of stuff. And I just remember, like, Coach Buczek, like, 1,000,000%, like, getting his ass beat, like, holding these red bags, like, all right, next guy up. You know, they're going right through. It was hilarious. Like, I thought that was hilarious. I had a college buddy, this guy Shipley, and me and him. I mean, we were just in Vegas together last year. We were just in Nashville this past December. He's a guy that I keep up with. You know, I visited him in Dallas multiple times after college. Right now, I think he's mad at me. I don't know what's up, you know, but it's all good. But Coach Buczek would say that we were his guys. You know, me and Shipley were his guys, and you know, I'm not gonna get too into the details on that. But so he does his 2 years of GA, and at this point he wants to stay with Concordia. And he wants to get like the O-line coach opening. There's an O-line opening. And they don't give it to him. Like, why? I don't get it, right? I feel like the course of his life would have been totally different if just his childhood buddy, right, who was coaching there, and his dad, who was a coach, put them up with a real job after his hard work for the school. I know that he wasn't an O-line coach, but like, he could have learned. School ended up getting some guy instead who I thought was a fool, but whatever. So he ends up going to the University of Chicago, where, hey, he's got success. I don't remember exactly what the stat is, but there's like a football with his name on it, and it says like best defense of all time. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's got some great accomplishment from his time at the University of Chicago. And we kept in touch, me and him, we would talk pretty much every day. After I graduated, I started coaching. Well, during my senior year, I started coaching at the school Jalen Brunson went to high school. Aiden O'Connell, Danny Sabatello from Risen, bantamweight champion. I was coaching at this school as a senior in college. I quit playing football, and I was just driving, like, back and forth. And, we would stay in touch. We were on the phone, how was practice, this, that. Super supportive. So we were just always, like, still keeping up with each other pretty much every day. He does college for a bit and then wants to coach high school. And he gets this job at Fort Pierce Central. It's in Florida. And he was, hey, if you ever want to come down here, you got a spot with me. You can stay with me to get up on your feet. We can get you a job subbing. You can coach with me, right? This was an offer to, like, it was always, like, seriously in the back of my mind. Like, if things went sideways at work ever, I was going to go to Florida and do this with him. But he did that, and I know he would hate the modern day NIL deal stuff. These kids getting paid the money in the game now, because at the time he was already kind of mentioning how open enrollment was kind of a killer, because he's a guy that believes in, developing players' skill, through hard work, coaching them and relationship building. And it's hard to do that when you got opposing coaches trying to poach your players right after a game. And as soon as your players get good or whatever, they're going to go to a different school. And now when you add in the money on top of that, like, I know that he would not be thinking that these modern day rules are a fly, right? He's over at this school, and I know he's having success there. I know he was doing. There's a video. Look him up on YouTube. Luke Buczek. There's a video, him doing, like, highlights or a little post game interview after a girls' flag football game. He's like, hey, if I'm able to leave a mark, like, at the school, like, it's what any coach would want. Which I'm sure that he did. Just a football guy, 100%. So yeah, we've had some good times. I'll share, like, one story. These are guys that I plan on honoring, sporadically here and there. Their birthday, their other day. But we're over. It's between when he would visit Florida and his parents in Michigan. And, we meet up at this bar. And, we're sitting there, we're watching the football game. And the Raiders are on, right? And this guy next to us, he's, like, shocked that the Raiders are bad, right? And he's remembering the Raiders being, like, awesome, which is weird because it's like the Raiders have sucked for a while, right? Well, this guy goes on to say how it's like his first night out of prison. He's been in jail for X amount of time, right? And we're like, oh, all right, and we're talking to this guy, we're not judgmental guys, we're giving this guy a fair shake, but the longer that we were talking to him, I don't know if it was the alcohol, he was like, hey, let's dip out to the back. Fast forward in the night, that guy ends up getting kicked out of the bar by the bartender for kind of being out of line. So I think coach is right, but we're in the back, and we're talking shop, we're talking football, and these guys are like, hey, like, coach football, whatever. And he was like, yeah, I was at the University of Chicago, and these guys are now, like, trying to give their pitch of, like, hey, like, get me on the team, you know what I mean? And I thought it was so funny. He's talking to these guys that are, like, clearly, like, not in college age anymore, but, like, trying to make a pitch for, like, nah, like, we can ball, like, you're gonna want us, You know what? Like, it was, and the fact that he was like out there giving it like a legitimate shot, I thought was hilarious. So that was one night. Yeah, between that, the guy that we were talking to right out of prison, then being kicked out, it was kind of a memorable night. But yeah, so, you know, fast forward just a little bit, you know, I remember another time, here's just like, this dude stood on business. Another quick story about him. There's this trainer, this lady, an athletic trainer. She was a jerk, all right? I'm going to say she was a power-hungry jerk. And, you know, whatever. So I had one lacrosse coach, this guy, Coach Ian, who himself, he was an assistant volunteer. Huge respect for any volunteer coach. This guy was working at Whole Foods and volunteering his time to help out the lacrosse program, the local lacrosse program. Major respect to this guy, right? But he had aspirations of being a head coach. And we were just in the trainer's room, and I had a broken ankle, right? So I was kind of tied to this athletic trainer for a while. And I was like mentioning, like, yeah, like Coach Ian wants to be a head coach. And she's like, oh yeah, I said, like, I think you'd be a good head coach. And her response was like, you'd probably think Coach Buczek would be a good head coach too. Crazy, out of left field, just name dropping him, different sport. It was nonsense. And I told him, I'm like, man, like, I told him what happened. This dude, I mean, Coach Buczek went into the trainer's office, straight up confronted her about it. She's trying to say, like, that's not how I meant it. He's like, there's only one way you could have meant it. You know, I thought that was just being a real one right there. You know, like, you're not, like, it was disrespectful. It wasn't right to say it in front of kids. And, I mean, I feel like that he made her, like, understand, you know, hey, that's not cool. But yeah, so just, you know, times passed. You know, I graduated college in 2018, and it was now 2021, right? We're in the midst of COVID. And I remember one time he asked me, he's like thinking about moving to Atlanta. And he's got some buddy who's like got some football program in Atlanta. He's like, do you think I should move? And, you know, I just give him a call. We talked about it on the phone real quick, right? No big deal. He tells me after, like, how appreciative he was for, like, just the call, like, for actually talking about it with him. Like, a lot of people would just say, like, yeah, do whatever you want, right? And he would say, like, how I'm one of his best friends. When you get older in life, like, you don't have a lot of friends. That's just, like, what he would say. Like, very few people you can kind of rely on. He had wanted me to go visit him in Miami. He was living near Miami. Of course I want to go to Miami. I just, like, and I know I could have stayed with him, and, like, it could have been fine. Like, for some reason I just didn't make that trip out, and for a while I beat myself up over it, but, like, I literally would have made it out. I was planning on going. You know what I mean? But if you got, like, a hunch, you know, like, if there's something you feel like you gotta do, like, do it, because you just never know, right? But I got messages from Coach saying, you know, I'm one of his, like, loyal soldiers. Like, there's always a spot for me with him. He texted me before with, like, a photo. We did some goofy, like, Ed Toss competition for summer camp 2015, and he sent me that photo, like, years later. Like, you guys were the best favorite football class that I ever had. Like, most guys that I still keep up with today. Other people liked him. He's a good guy. 100%. But one day, right, I'm just on Instagram, and he has a screenshot of some, like, really nasty remark. It's bogus. And I replied, I'm like, why'd this guy say that? He's like, he's just trying to get a rise out of me, like, poorly played by him. And I'm like, all right, for sure. You know, I figure he knows better. Like, hey, it's all good. All right, next day, Coach Buczek is dead. I don't know what happened to him. I have no idea what happened to him. I went to his funeral with my friend Mary. We drove up to Michigan. And I was a mess, right? Like, this guy was a dude that was like a true mentor, true guy that understood like the coaching grind, you know what I mean? Just a good friend, you know? So yeah, and then I ended up going years later in 2020, I think it was 2022, maybe 23, but I think it was 2022. I went with my ex-girlfriend at the time. We talked to Coach Buczek's mom through Facebook. We made plans to go visit. We got a hotel room nearby, but during the day, we went, got to meet his mom, his dad, see like his childhood stuff, like the basement, like photos with him and his friends. Like, we went to like his high school where he played at. Went on like a little walk with his mom. Super cool time. Learned a lot about him. That opportunity to coach at Concordia like meant the world to him. He packed up his stuff in a car, just drove down like at the opportunity to coach at Concordia for that GA position. Yeah, I miss him 100%. I think that he would be totally not cool with how high school and college football had become, but there's a chance he'd be coaching pro at this point. Who knows? Especially with all the opportunities of professional flag football now. Like, I could see him have made his way onto a pro staff by now. He was he even coached for like Xavier Rhodes, that old cornerback for the Vikings. He had coached at a camp that he had hosted. So he was just jumping at every opportunity. And yeah, just a great guy. Had a great impact in my life. I think he will be 40 today. So I just wanted to hop on, share a little bit about him. And, you know, it's not a one-off. I have some, you know, verses like in my one rap song that are kind of tributes for him. But yeah, other people, he touched a lot of people's lives. But I feel like honored that he considered me like one of his best friends. And, you know, you just gotta do the right things, like find ways to honor him, tell the story. Yeah. Alright, YouTube. That's all I got today. Best of luck, health, and happiness. Give people their flowers while they're still alive. Alright, let people know how cool they are, how they're the bomb. Right? If you got to go make that trip to go see somebody, like, do it. Alright? That stuff's important. Take care.